Bob Harwell. I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. I started making calls June coming, it'll be 21 years ago. And I'm gonna go back a little ways. I went hunting with a friend of mine in 1991 that had a Lamar Williams paddle call. And that was the first box call type call I'd ever heard that I thought sounded like a turkey. So I decided then I was gonna have one. And I called Lamar and ordered one. And then I started calling Lamar, talking to him. I got more calls from him, and my wife and I started going down visiting him, spending a couple of days with him and his family in the week of the 4th of July. And we went down in 1998, and when we got there, he asked me, "Do you want to make a box call while you're here?" And I told him no. He said, "Why not?" I said, "I just have no desire to make, I just don't want to make one." And I had absolutely no desire to waste my time and his wood doing something I didn't want to do. And he kept on, so finally I said, okay. So I made that call, and I was surprised it sounded good. And I went home, and a couple of weeks later I went up to visit Neil Cost, and I carried it up and showed it to Neil. And Neil was real happy with it, said it really sounded good for my first attempt. And we didn't go back in 2000, went back in 1999, and Lamar asked me, "You want to make a paddle call while you're here?" I said, "No, as much as I've seen you and Neil fret over making these calls, I don't want to try it." "Come on, try it." I said, "Okay." So he got me a butternut block, and that call sounded fair at best. And went home, and I carried it up to show it to Neil. And Neil played it, and he said, "Well, that does sound pretty good." I said, and he said, "Bob, why don't you start making calls?" I said, "For what?" He said, "You have a good ear for a call. You got all the equipment you need, maybe some hand tools, but why don't you start making calls? I said, you ought to at least try it. If you don't like it, you don't have to." And I said, "I just got no desire to, Neil." So Neil kept and I visited Neil at least once a month, and for the 9.5 years I knew him, and I called him about once a week just to talk to him, and he would always bring that up. "Why don't you start making calls?" So about a year later, I went up and talked to him, spent the day with him, and I told him I'm gonna try it. So I got me some poplar and some walnut, and I didn't know anything about wood selection, but I tried to make some and carried them up and showed them to him. He told me what I did wrong or what I needed to do to straighten them out, and I just started making them and selling them, and I've never advertised. I just sold them mostly mail order, and I came up here to Unicorn. The first year I came was in '93, and I started making calls in 2001. And I started coming to Unicorn selling calls, and I did Palmetto Sportsman Classic there in Columbia for 6 years. I did the National Convention for 6 years. And it just rolled into, I enjoyed doing it. And that's really the only reason I made them. It's not a money-making thing for me by any means, and I really don't want it to ever turn into a job. I just enjoy doing that and other things, and that's what started me. But I watched Neil do a lot of things, and he told me a lot of things. He and Lamar both told me things that, and I knew a lot about call making before I started, but I guess I really learned more from Lamar, because I've seen Lamar make calls from start to finish. Mostly what I saw Neil do was tune calls, and I drilled out a lot of call blanks for him and things like that. Over the years I knew him, and his health was real bad. He didn't go out in the shop a lot, but that's what got me started into doing it. And I told people when we had the round table discussion about box call making a couple of years ago, the main thing I've got out of it is the friendship I've made from people I've met all over the country. And that to me means a lot more than really the call making, but that's what I've really gotten more out of call making than anything else, is the friendship that I've made from people all over the United States.
Why do they call you Blunt Bob?
If somebody asks me a question, I think they want my honest answer. And I tell them, you know, what I think. And people say I'm very blunt with the truth, but I feel like if you ask me a question, you want my answer. And I'm not going to lie to you about something. I just tell you what I think. And I've read in some faces over the years. So that's why I got the name Blunt Bob.